Hello.
Hello.
Today is April 1st, 2019.
This is not an April Fool's joke, anything that we're about to say.
These are facts. So, last video we were waiting to hear about our last embryo that was still growing. So, after day 6, there was only one of the 3 embryos still left. So we waited until Friday for day 7 to see if it was going to grow into a blastocyst. So when we got the call earlier in the day on Friday morning, we kind of had a feeling, because they had been calling very late in the day. It was giving us a lot of anxiety. It's very stressful. But this particular day, they called like before noon, and
I had a bad feeling about that.
Yeah, so unfortunately the third and final embryo stopped growing, or arrested, as they say, where it's not dividing cells, it's not growing to be where it needs to be. It was very much lagging behind anyway, but we were hoping with the extra time that it would eventually make it, like, come on little guy, you can do it. So that wasn't exactly the news that we were hoping for, but also it wasn't a huge surprise because of the way things had been going the days leading up to that. For like every call, it's like your heart just breaks, and just when you think it can't like break anymore, you get that last call saying you have nothing. You invested all of your time and your money, especially like into something that you were hoping was gonna be like the seed of the future family. You're hoping, when you go into IVF, you're hoping for like multiple embryos that are all healthy and strong and make it to blastocysts, and they could be frozen and have the kids on ice, and assuming like implantation was all successful, you have your family just waiting. And that was one of the major reasons why we chose IVF, but also because that was the way that the doctor said it was the only way that Ilana could carry a baby that was hers. So we were pretty sad. It's really like a weak word to describe it, but when you like can't stop crying, but then you're like, you just look at each other and you just sometimes you were laughing, we didn't know why, just like all these crazy emotions that were happening, and it was a rough, very rough few days after that when you realize that
we have nothing.
You spent 25 grand, you'll be in debt for years.
Yeah, we have not a single embryo.
There's nothing to show for anything. And they're like, oh, it's not nothing because now we know what happens. And I'm like, that just it's a huge part of like the dream family, and just hearing that it's not happening right now is devastating to somebody, young couple, I guess. So the biggest question that I know I had was, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
We got out these incredibly healthy eggs. Everything looked good. All of her tests were good. Everything, they fertilized, and then the second they were like slow growing. It like wasn't too much of a cause of concern, but we were very concerned with why it couldn't reach the stage that it needed to, especially because that was never like an inkling that we were given, so didn't Google, because don't want to know anymore right now. And they got us in to see the doctor today, April 1st, Friday, to really like go over every little painful detail about what happened at each embryo on each day, and what the course of action should be, what his recommendations are, or you know, still a very tough conversation to have because nothing he said was gonna, you know, take that pain away. He kind of like almost made it worse because we were like, okay, so there still wasn't nothing that we could have done, which is probably the hardest part of this. Like once you take those eggs, there's nothing else you can do. It's not in your hands anymore. Yeah. He basically said all the embryos turned out to be abnormal and wouldn't have sustained like life. So even if they were implanted prior to being a blastocyst, or some people do earlier transfers, you know, he's like, the chances are it wouldn't have stuck anyway. But it's tough to hear, and we went over like how many cells each had. I think it was 5, 5, and 6. It's like 5 cells, and 6 cells, when it should really be 8 cells at one point. And so they're all like lagging behind. And as we know, none of them made it. So,
he told us why.
Yeah.
And he said, because my nose does not want to stop itching, and it is really, really annoying.
Okay, you're so cute.
He said, I mean, we already knew this part, that my ovarian reserve is incredibly small for someone of my age. I have like the ovarian reserve of like someone like in their 40s, and I'm not. I'm in my 30s. So we already knew that, but we never in a million years thought that that would be directly related to the embryos like not surviving. We thought that it meant that like I had a low amount of eggs, but you know, once the egg and the sperm come together and it's fertilized and there's an embryo, like then we're good to go. Like the problem was just like having eggs to retrieve, but then the rest would be fine. But we learned today that that's actually not the case. That the low ovarian reserve also means like low quality.
Potentially lower quality. So like even though we got out like really healthy eggs and they all matured, and he was like, they were great. They were, you know, very good eggs. So I was like, so then what happened? He's like, well, we knew going into it that we wouldn't get a lot of eggs. I'm like, maybe you guys knew that, but y'all neglected to share that with us. So We're sitting here like, we only got 3, like not knowing that that was like a thing.
Yeah, we thought we'd get double. We thought like around 6.
So I was like, well, why did nobody prep us for that? Like if everybody working there knew, and we were like the only 2 that didn't know. We're like the ones that take it the hardest. So he's like, it's possible that the quality is decreased, but said it's still possible to use Ilana's eggs to conceive and have a baby.
But the chances are incredibly low. And he said that I'm lucky if I even get one baby from my own eggs. Like if I even get pregnant one time. And I lost it.
Yeah, that was very hard to hear. Because I know all my wife has wanted is, you know, 1 to 2, maybe 3 of her own biological children. And for him to say, like, we'll be lucky if we can have 1, you know, we're like trying to think in the future. He's like, you can't think in the future anymore. Like, you have to, like, look with what...
But the whole time I've only been thinking of the future. Like, I've always been thinking 10 steps ahead, and he was like, you can't do that anymore.
And you'll be lucky if you can have 1. So he recommended a milder form of stimulation of her eggs, because there's no point in we were like on the max dose of every medication, which is very expensive. So this time he's like, no matter what you're going to be on, because she responded so well to the medicine.
But then he said not that well. He's like, you responded moderate.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
But it was like, you responded well and that you produced, that it did what it was supposed to do, not the volumes you were hoping for. But then he was like, well, that was expected because you have low eggs. Again, news to us. So it'd be a more mild stimulant as opposed to like full on like injection. They're still going to be that, but he wants to give her ovaries a break of like 2 weeks or so. So they're going to do this thing called I don't have the paper in front of me, but
well, basically we're gonna start we went over our options, and basically there's like no time to waste. I can't even like I couldn't even like take an April break and do like a May cycle, because if I did, it would mean that I would lose an egg in April. Like, there's no time to waste. If a baby comes from this, like, it will truly be like a miracle child. So there's no time. We have to do it now. So
he's gonna put her on birth control to fake cycle, I guess. So she'll have, when you get her period, pretty much any day now because of like the trigger shot and whatever like ruins your cycle. So she'll have her period, but she won't release an egg. So she'll take birth control for 14 or 15 days. That'll give her ovaries a nice little break, to like, cycle out any extra meds that may still be in there. And then we will, so after the birth control, I think it's 4 days that you wait. And then you start the medicine again to stimulate. So he said this time there would be a pill in the morning, which was new. And then the Menopure at night, but more of it. So lots of mixing in my future. We had 9 vials left from the first round, and go figure the most expensive one, the Gonal-F, we're not using this time.
Yeah.
So great. So that would lead us to, I think, 3rd week of April or so after all that. And
yeah, the retrieval would be like the 3rd week.
I think they said the retrieval was, or the transfer would be like Cinco de Mayo. I remember that.
Yeah,
the transfer. That was a transfer or the retrieval. I think that may have been the transfer.
But roughly, obviously when I get my period and when like the birth control starts.
Yeah, I mean,
but it would be around.
I think you can get it today or tomorrow. So nothing today yet, but the day after she gets the period, that's when she'll start the birth control. Right. A lot of information was thrown at us today, and I was like, I learned a lot though. So just a side note for anybody that gets their progesterone levels.
Estrogen. Oh, he was going off of the estrogen levels.
The estrogen levels, because they call you with the results. Apparently it was 275 milligrams of estrogen equals 1 egg. So if he says your estrogen is like 900 something, that means you got like 3 to 4 eggs.
So that's why they knew.
That's why they knew, and nobody told us.
We're like, we wish we knew that. But now this time, when they give us the estrogen levels, we're gonna know like about how many eggs are in there. So all the stuff that we learned today, the more you know. So we need to figure out like the finance part, because you have to be financially cleared before you start a cycle. So we probably have like a week or so to like figure it out. We spent over $20,000 the first cycle and have like not a single embryo, like nothing to show for it. So we're starting all over from the beginning. We have to pay for all the meds again, even though they're like a little different, but we have to pay for another like round of egg retrieval meds again. And now, oh yeah, he also said today, I'll go back to the finance part, but he also said today that he wants to make this cycle like really aggressive.
Oh, aggressive transfer.
Yeah.
So he would hope that we would also still get like 3 or 4 eggs and hope that they would all fertilize again. But on day 5, no matter which way they look, if they're not as far along, he wants to transfer every embryo that has made it to day 5.
Yeah. So basically, like, having embryos that turn into blastocysts and having those siblings, like, waiting on ice for the future is, like, not an option for me and my eggs right now. It's like, however many embryos survive to day 5 are all going to be transferred inside of me.
In the hopes that one takes.
In the hopes that one takes. And he's like, the odds of, you know, you having, like, twins or triplets is, like not, like, basically non-existent.
But
like, to be
luck, you never know.
But that's how crazy this is that we would put in so many embryos. Yeah, like 3-4 embryos if there are, and just hope that one takes. I mean, that's how that's how small my chances are that I would be able to, like, genetically have my own children. So
he doesn't think that, like, they'd be able to grow as well in the dish. I guess so. We were trying to do the pre-implantation genetic testing for screening, and he said not to even bother because they're not going to be strong enough to test or something,
and there's not going to be that many that's
so
worth,
you're spending
like, all
this money, and you're going to be like, what, testing one embryo? You know, 3 hopefully. But, you know, while it's heartbreaking, we are trying to stay strong and not go insane about how much money we owe.
Oh my god, my nose is so annoying. But to go back to the finance part, so today we applied for a loan, and there's a fertility company that, like, partners with our doctor's office, and they offer packages, and just having one retrieval and one transfer package, like, wasn't really enough for somebody like me that it's gonna take more, obviously, as we can all see, more than one try. Like, we were not expecting that or anticipating that at all, but now it's gonna take, like, several rounds to just hope that I get pregnant at all. And every time I would want a sibling, it's like we would have to do the same thing. It's not like I get to just have my retrieval, have all the embryos, and then just round up the siblings as the years go on. Every time we want to, like, expand our family, it's like every round of IVF, all the embryos have to go inside of me every time. So every time, if I am lucky enough to be pregnant and give birth to a healthy, beautiful child, when we would want to do that again, it would be the same thing. I would have to do the whole round of IVF every single time because there's, like, no time to waste and no extra embryos to freeze, or there won't be. So we're looking into packages. Well, I mean, we've already looked into them all weekend, so we know so there is a package that we're gonna get. Hopefully the loan gets approved. We should hear back, like, tomorrow, hopefully, on that. It's 3 egg retrievals and 6 transfers. And it's a humongous, enormous amount. It is the down payment for a house. Literally. It's what people would apply a loan for to buy a home. And we're gonna end up being, like, $50,000+ in debt just in the hopes to have a family. And that's, like, the scariest thing, because
we want those other things too.
Yeah.
I want to buy a house one day, and we were hoping sooner rather than later, and now look, we're gonna be, like, we get $25,000 plus this package is 30 grand. So plus the meds, so we're looking at, like, 36 grand. It's more than what my car was when I got it.
Our thoughts are very scattered and all over the place because, we haven't really slept.
Mm-hmm.
And our heart is in, like, a million pieces, and we keep crying, and we'll be talking and then both just start hysterical crying, like in the middle of a conversation, and then we'll both just start laughing, but it's not the kind of laughing when you think something is funny. It's like the laughing when you're just like scared. It's like when you laugh at like a funeral or something. It's not like real genuine laughter. We're just like laughing because we're really crying and we're just petrified and really scared. I don't want to be let down again. I can't handle it.
I hope not. So, we'll see what happens, but let's hope for the best.
Yeah.
Seems hard, but...
I have to call day 1 of when I'm full flow.
Sound
We all
familiar?
remember that. I have to be full flow. I have to be full flow again. Which is not tonight because it's after 9 p.m. and I'm no flow again. So maybe that will be tomorrow and it will kind of kickstart all this. I hope so, sooner rather than later. And IVF cycle round 2 should be starting any day now.
Let's call it take 2.
Take 2. I hope that by the time that you are all watching this, I am already pregnant. I really, really hope so.
Me too.
Because it's more than I want than anything in the whole world.
We're not gonna stop trying until we make it happen. Anything we can do.
Yeah. So,
For our family.
I love you.
I love you too. I think we should probably go to bed.
Okay.
Anyone else tired?
Yeah.
But
Me haven't slept.
anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. If you've stuck around this far. And
We'll talk soon.
see you when I'm full flow. Before 9 p.m. Alright, it's time to go to sleep. Good night.
Good night.